Right, we're back. Drat, I hit the wrong okay. There we go. So with this, we should be able to get the match lock next turn, and the next great person in 10 turns. Again, almost certainly a great engineer or scientist. Not interested.
History teaches that all conquerors who have allowed their subject races to carry arms have prepared their own downfall by doing so.
This starting off, coming from an awful person. Secondly, yeah. No, I probably should have done the military standard, but right. Ah, which means Caveman is here. Yep. That's the Egyptian nowadays mythology. After all, what is mythology? But a religion that no one actually worships anymore. Or, well, worship has died off, and for long enough so that there really isn't a leftover tradition, so to speak. There was at one point in history no living practitioners there. And efforts at restarting the worship are partially had to reconstruct practices. There we go. That's an accurate statement. Dancing there. Oh yeah, this. That's a heavy axeman. Game Hunter. That should help keep you safe. Yeah, arming a people does not necessarily lead to rebellion. It just makes it much easier for them to do so, should they decide that they need to rebel. And generally speaking, if people are living nice, happy lives, they really don't see the need to. Of course, there are various things that can push a people to rebellion, including massive amounts of racism. That's one of the kickers. Okay, yeah, just go straight for ancient customs. After that, the tannery is amazing. It'll get me 3 production. Even when it weren't for the plus 10% with goods, certain goods, it would still beat the engineering school. So yeah, ancient customs, get those set up. Keep trying. If we can damage them enough, maybe it will be safe to attack at some point. Perhaps I should bring this sloop of war in and have it start bombarding. Okay, you still move faster by coast. Falconry School. There we go. Nothing there. Ooh, the Lyceum, finally. Food production. Castle Drawbridge, I guess. It's weird how it doesn't really link up commerce production. Yeah, it doesn't link up commerce production. That goes into science. Well, it doesn't even check commerce production at all, so these filters. So, great. I wanted to check crime, but I guess I can handle the queue later. Boxing kangaroo.
As soon as it comes into contact with the waves of the sea and is submerged, becomes a single stone mass, impregnable to the waves and every day stronger.
Waterproof concrete. Finally. I'll be able to build it in one city. The one that's next to an active volcano. Well, what is still considered a volcano. Because yes, volcanoes can completely die off and become mountains in sea to sea. So not only are they a nuisance in the early game, once they start being useful, they're usually gone. Isn't that just wonderful? Okay, settler class units. Oh, they cost the same amount of base production? But they don't have the builds percent faster with. I do wonder how much that adds up to. On the other hand, it's probably worth the population, so. Colonialism it is, I guess. Because starting with 2 population does make it easier to get cities to grow properly. There we go. I just wanted to have it take damage from a range bombard so that it would be easier to actually truly destroy. Kangaroo camp, because there's nothing better to build. Hunting dog trainer. Nice. Not a bad spot for a workshop, honestly. But it would be better to take advantage of the prime timber here. Much, much better. Oh, it's Play-Doh. I don't have any big opinions of that guy, unlike certain other philosophers. So I don't feel the need to say much. Other than, hey, it's Play-Doh. Okay, the capital's missing an academy, so head over there. It's entirely reasonable for the capital to be the one that has the most production of science, so. I don't think I'd be wrong in assuming as such. Plus almost 200 science. Neat. I mean, it's not even 1% of my total science output, but any little bit helps. Just being able to push that a little bit harder. It's exactly the sort of thing that lets me get really, really far. Right, now I have to remember... Oh, right, I wanted to set you up on this island. Muskox folklore. I can't build the hurt for it. Because the latitude is broken in space maps. Big cat. Anyway, I've had some ideas for names. On the topic of names, well, there's a lot to it. Oh shoot, where's the naval shipping warehouse? Star Fort. I think the combo should be enough to handle it all. If I really need to, I can, well, I probably should upgrade to a guardhouse regardless. Actually, not necessarily. I do need an officium in order to build a book closure, though. So, names. I should really give the continents names at some point. And I figure, and I could try to do some real research into how the various languages of Polynesia are and all that. Or I could go for whimsical and make it a bit silly. And maybe make it, to a general extent, riffs on how, well, how something as conceptually vast as the entirety of Polynesia, because there are so many cultures involved. On how you just slap this whole Polynesia thing and it describes it all. I mean, yeah, is surprising continuity. Between the various cultures due to a fairly consistent transmission and communication between the groups. The various groups. There's a lot of them. And make them all, yeah. So, this might be a little silly, but because I started landlocked on the second largest continent, the home continent, as I've been calling it, my continent, shall be, from here on, referred to as Mononesia. And everything shall be, in some way, a riff on that. Just to make things a bit silly. So the two offshoot continents of Mononesia is Ethionesia and Byzantium. Finally, this massive unmapped continent is the one that stretches across an entire hemisphere. It probably accounts for at least a third of the world's landmass, if not more. Shall henceforth be referred to as Neonesia. And this is Sunesia. There we go. Cartography solved. A lot of those are birds, so if I actually manage to land on the tile, I could scare the birds off into the water. Okay, so how about you? Is there anything I need to be aware of? Let's get you some food production, I guess. Gonna avoid those. And that. I might figure out what's preventing the falcon from doing it. Fire. What does it do? Oh, I needed to build a lot, basically anything that isn't an arquebusier, I think. Okay, fine. I'll get a gunsmith too. After you build a bunch of simpler buildings. Although it is telling that literally every one of these buildings takes less than 10 turns to build. I also need an officium. Solely so I can build that book printer. Okay, so there's a new source of... it faded. Great. Wonderful. Lovely. At least there's plenty of places where I can build lumber camps. Eventually. You just wait here. You'll get your day eventually. Anyone still need a shell worker on this? On Ethionesia? Nope. In fact, this continent might be so large that I might split it into subcontinents. I mean, what else am I supposed to call this but Pernesia? In this section, I could call Hatija, which is actually a pretty nice name and rolls off the tongue extremely well. Okay, so if I land the unit there, I'm just wondering what happened to the longbow. Okay, it's lost the Arrow Barrage promotion. Let's give it Rolling Thunder instead. Which is Arrow Barrage but better. And specifically for cannon style units. I can deal more damage with ranged assault, and yeah. Sadly, Blitz, something that has to come later, or packaged with Sea Hunter 4, which weakens the ship against wooden types. Wooden type ships, which are early on practically all ships. So it's not helpful until all the ironclads come in. I am still intent upon planting a city here rather than there, though. I can build a quarry here as well as, I guess, a pasture. Admittedly, the city is probably not going to amount to that much for rather simple reasons. That's just how it is. That was a longer load than usual. Okay, let's give you -1 terrain movement cost and a buff against wooden ships. This doesn't exactly let you move much further, but it can be helpful. Do it. I can get that in later, the longbowman. I can farm some XP on the animals. Kind of like what I'm doing here. Except it's sea animals. Nothing here. Ooh, observatory and city council. Have I yet to build an officium? I want to check to see. Well, okay, the best way to check is this way. Looks like I already have. Crime is questionable. Let's build a bailiwick. And keep that tower. It's 12, that way I can build the pub and the insurance office. Gambling den without it being too big of a deal. Maybe add the guardhouse too, just to be sure. Oh hey, Murix. That'd be a lot better if I didn't have all the dye I could need. Yeah, Murix is one of the potential resources that you can use in order to produce dye. Which is surprisingly difficult to obtain, all things considered. Not entirely sure why I'd recommend that spot. Because with this, I can definitely reach this eventually. Not quite yet, but eventually. And sure, I could reach this reef if I move over to here, but yeah. And this is out of reach anyway. Fa. Is that an actual settlement name in Polynesia? Because that would be intensely interesting. You might as well sleep until you're ready. Now, longbowman's here. I can automate you. Ah. Without worrying about it. Zebra herd. That was on Mononesia, wasn't it? Okay. Brand new city. Flint gatherer is good. Same with grass gatherer. And the lumber camp. Then we get the mine camp. With that, I can get some appreciable distance set up. I guess he healed. Wait. That was a longbowman. Oh, hey, a mouflon. I believe those can provide herds. Deer herd. Yep, looks like it's a sheep herd. I did expect as much, but it's nice to have extra confirmation on that.
Soldiers usually win the battles, and generals get the credit for them.
Yep. It's always fun how responsibility works in the chain of command. Whenever something great happens, usually the one that gets the credit for it is the person on top. Whenever something bad happens, usually gets blamed on those at the bottom, or someone in the middle gets quietly fired. Anyway. I think Confederacy is probably the most accurate. Now, the concept of a Confederacy has very interesting historical elements to it. Namely because there is... Okay, where is it? Buildings. Oh, jeez. Wonder if the cultures are... Nope, okay. Special buildings. There we go. Yeah, this. It actually requires Constitution. Funny enough, the Confederate States of America were not actually a confederation. They were actually less decentral. They were actually more centralized than the United States of the time. Although the US, to its credit, also centralized after the Civil War, so you know, that's fun too. Anyway. Oh yeah, right, leadership gives a great general. Oh yeah, the military academy requires military tradition, doesn't it? Yeah. Now the question becomes, should I wait? Because my ability to get that kind of a unit is fairly limited, especially if I do achieve world conquest extremely quickly. Or do I just get this in order to give plus 3 XP to all units? Because the military academy doesn't give XP, it just increases military unit production. Fine. Yeah, the Confederacy. The Confederate States of America. It is atrocious. It was not a confederation. Not in the slightest. The states involved actually had fewer rights than in the USA. Among other things, the most notable was the fact that, well, to put it simply, states were not allowed to abolish slavery. Which, I mean, it makes sense. That was the whole point of the conflict in order to maintain slavery. And anyone that says otherwise is trying to glaze the Confederate States of America. That basically. They liked the Confederacy and its race-based slavery. They just don't want to admit it out loud. Because then, they would be admitting to the fact that they're bigots. Some of them are actually proud of being bigots. They're called far-right extremists. Anyway, and let's see here. Prime Timber Camp is good. Oh, okay, so according to the Forge, that's 3 production on the Carpenter. So it's actually better than the Roper. I can't go much further, though, because the Roper is the last one that is better in efficiency than the engineering school. Everything else is just too expensive. Okay. The Confederacy, the Confederate States of America, were awful in so many ways. They, fearing a slave revolt, or worse, the central government stamping over their liberties by freeing their slaves, which is why certain concepts of private, absolute private property is an awful idea, because it means you can own people. And so, paradoxically, by expanding liberties that certain people can enjoy, you're heavily reducing the liberties of others, etc., etc. more movement, attack more often. Yeah. They rebelled against the original central government and set up an even more centralized one. Although in actuality, text key sign. The text key sign was a really great event because it added 4 production to the tile. Yeah. Although, in a way, it does make sense that they built up a much more powerful government. Because it takes a strong centralized government in order to ensure that the rich and powerful have a sufficiently well-insulated playground in order to do whatever they want without having to deal with the consequences of their actions, at least not for long. After all, you cannot put down a slave revolt without a sufficiently armed military that is very willing to use lethal force in order to put the slaves back into their supposed places. Okay, let's see if I can convince them to head back to a closer location. Ooh, Falconry School right away. Nice. And the same is true of other rich people. A centralized society makes it incredibly easy for powerful people to exert influence. Because it gives them one target to bribe, threaten, etc. Blackmail, and whatnot. Because it gives them, whereas a decentralized one, sure, it's easier to do it for a local authority, but for the whole thing? Unless, of course, the central government starts gaining more and more power at the expense of the decentralized portions of the government. See, for example, the United States political system. Used to be incredibly decentralized with the Articles of Confederation. That was scrapped, though, because, well, making it so that a central government cannot even tax money, cannot even tax anything, is a recipe for not having a central military, among other things. So the end result on government finances is incredibly predictable. And, well, was very much in we really should have seen that coming territory. But I'm digressing a bit. Over time, the United States government has centralized. This is a fact. fact, it started very early on. In the early 1800s, in the late 1700s, the central government had no ability to regulate stuff that was happening inside of the states. They had the ability to do so when it involved the states interacting with each other, in the Interstate Commerce Clause, as it is called. But yeah. Then, down the line, the government decided that, well, actually it's a bit hard to put it out, but, there was a court decision, I think it was the Supreme Court, that specified that if commerce within a state could influence the commerce of other states, then it fell under the central government's jurisdiction. For obvious reasons, this is unimaginably broad, but still not as broad as it could be. I think the example that was perhaps used was I actually don't remember, but later on down the line, it got to the point that building upon that decision, a later Supreme Court decision decided that any economic activity could influence commerce between states due to how interconnected the economy has become. Therefore, the central government has the right to regulate all economic activity. That is an insane amount of political power in the hands of the federal government of the US. And again, this has fairly foreseeable consequences on the power balance in the area. And that's just the Supreme Court's influence on granting the federal government more power. There's also the fact that, at least since the late 1900s, the early 1900s, the federal government has been doing its best to concentrate power in the executive branch. The sheer amount of executive orders, which are basically royal decrees, but Republican, rather than monarchist, and again, the results are fairly predictable. The US government, again, becoming more and more centralized. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, okay, that's why growth stopped. But again, that's predictable, that states end up centralizing when practically every modern political ideology, outside of a select few, believe that the best way to a prosperous future is to centralize the state and give it more power. Exceptions, of course, exist, but none of them are near the reins of power. And a lot of the ones that claim to want to bring power back to the people the right wing aren't actually doing it. They have no plans of really doing that beyond, well, the rhetorical. Ah, Yoruba in over here. Nice. Of course, this is all from the fact that dictatorships require a strong state to work properly. Maintaining inequality requires a strong state for multiple reasons. Or, better put, expanding inequality requires a strong state for multiple reasons that I'm not willing to get into here. Not one bit. Otherwise, I'd be ranting for way longer. And possibly inaccurately. So I'd rather avoid it if at all possible. The capitalist free market absolutely requires a reasonably strong state. Again, this is for multiple reasons I'm not going to get into, because it's a lot. Do we need an amphibian pawn anywhere in Ethiopia? Nope, that looks fit. Okay. And there's also the fact that nationalization requires a strong state for ridiculously obvious reasons. So, as an end result, that accounts for the motives of dictators, or dictatorial wannabes, or other forms of authoritarians. Those that love traditional hierarchies. Those that are at least okay, either love capitalism or think that it's, the best thing we've got, so we might as well stick with it. Social democrats of all stripes, and literally every authoritarian socialist. As I said, there are very few people that don't want some sort of strong centralized state, whether by word or by deed. Very, very few. Okay, out of curiosity, Blitz should be available by now. Have I either intentionally not picked it, or is that something else? You know what? Go around hunt. I'll leave you automated. In order to speed things along, because I would like to have more than 2 text research today, or 3 text research today, please. Even if it takes a little while. Those are 2 sequels, so. Okay, River Authority Naval Shipping Warehouse. However, that means that the city's probably going to have, okay, maybe not a crime problem, but I'd rather nip that in the bud anyway. We need to build an officium at some point. Sure, let's get a grocer and an insurance office anyway. It's not like there are any real production gains. And there's no extra science either, at least not yet. Probably should build the causeway though. And up here sounds like an excellent idea considering the city is right up against the coastline. And a very flat coastline at that too. So lots of water tiles within reach. I'm just gonna say that I think Mononesia's done with the amphibian ponds, so I hope I'm right on that one. Because dart frogs are rare. Actually, they're pretty common. However, the simple fact is that dart frogs are not easily accessible. Probably should build a courthouse. That sounds like a good idea. I'm locking a locksmith and the market scales. Let's get the community garden out too. There's the courthouse. School, observatory, university. The university is going to become extra helpful as I get through the scientific method texts. The various science texts. And also civil engineering. That one's helpful too, but I think that's industrial era. Take a turn to heal. You know, what would be a good idea? Explorer unit. That's a bad. Patrol, stock skirmish. There has to be an explorer type unit somewhere, right? And they can't be that expensive, right? That's the recon unit. Why are you so expensive? Let's get one of you set up. I'll send you over to Neonesia and start exploring the continent, a new continent, and figure out how to best work my way through. Right, I need an officium. Okay, crime is decent. If I build the guardhouse, I can probably fit in more stuff. Gameplay done. Jade mine, jade carver, shearing board, riding school. Got a rogue. Just go through the cheap stuff that isn't just health or happiness. If it's just those, it's not worth it. Fire brigade. Food production's a good idea. I'm not sure about the pub. Let's leave it. Same with the fishing pens. Okay, I'm gonna just double check. And if there are no more amphibian pond spaces left, I can scratch it off as a job well done. Doesn't look like it, at least not on Mononesia, so. You mean I went that long without setting up an elephant herd over there? Great. Obvious improvement from the lumber mill compared to the mine. Yeah. Lumber mills are just a superior improvement. Bison? Nah, lumber mill. Better than the pasture. Besides, sheep are pretty plentiful. Yeah, I'm probably just gonna drop off the adventurer on the closest spot to the continent and then just hit explore and wait until it dies. Set it and forget it. Ignores terrain movement costs. -1 terrain movement cost. That's for mobility. Okay, these are the base stats. Start with Sentry 1, Gorilla 1, Woodsman 1. Ignores threat movement cost, can see invisible units. At peace with humanoid NPCs, so it's not gonna get attacked by the barbarians. In fact, we can walk around with barbarians. Really, I should give it Hunter 1 in order to give it the best chance of dealing with those. Okay. I know there's a mobility promotion. No. A speed promotion. But what are its requirements? I would like to know. Local Lord is not what I'm looking for. Shoot. It might be faster just to check the actual promotions list. Because these are organized by name. Speed. Flanking 3 or combat 4. Okay. It of course does not have the total XP necessary for that, but it might pick it up eventually. Which is of some importance. It at least can be helpful down the line. Yes, shaft mine requires explosives. I don't really need food production. I'd rather build a town here. You're out of things to do, aren't you? Then again, if you're level 58 and have 3,365 experience points, yeah. I'm not sure what to do about that. Anyway, the nearest point is literally over here, so. Where are you headed to? Oh, good luck with that. That seems like a feather worker, as does that one. Okay. I guess it's in my best interest to set it up. Okay, there's probably enough development from these work for this city for a while. I need to focus on getting this dealt with. What's annoying is that it's like the search function. Special buildings. Wonders. Space. Space. Animalistic, that's the enclosures and folklore. Religious, no. Special? That's this stuff, okay. I wonder if the Aurora has a building. TUV, okay. It's before auto. Augmented, auto. It's there, it's not. Okay, let's see if I can find the Great Barrier Reef. Where's Crafty Grocery? Okay, so if it does have one, it's not in the buildings, it's in the special buildings. Fact. Local requirements. Landscape. Natural wonders. Oh, okay. Buildings enable. It doesn't enable a building. Oh, come on. All of these have natural wonders associated with them. Yep. It's just the Aurora that doesn't have anything with it. Great. Feather worker. I could still build improvements on the tile, right? Or does the Aurora lock me out of that doing that too? I can't build improvements. That probably has to do with the... Nope, just no improvements at all. Alright, a natural wonder that actively hinders use of the tile. Woo. Lovely. Wonderful. Amazing. Publisher, finally. Noria, distillery, windmill, terrace. I'm sure you've got dance set up, so let's get you the two. And well, I'm gonna lose the last dance anyway. I only need one entertainer. The last of the non-civic dances. Squatters cost money. That's fine. Observatory, printer's workshop. Officium. Once I find the building, there it is. How's your crime, Papit? Okay, that is actually kind of amazing. I believe I haven't built the oil lamps yet. Gambling and den it is, then. Right, one more turn after this, and then I'll have to call it. It is about lunchtime, after all. Okay, where to next? No, that tile isn't within borders, but this one is. Heal. Go off and explore. Cinnabar in sync. By the way, Cinnabar is the ore form of mercury. Let's publish through. You know what? Clockpunk. Let's get those alternate timeline buildings out of the way.
I would say colonialism is a wonderful thing. It spread civilization to Africa. Before it, they had no written language, no wheel as we know it, no schools, no hospitals, not even normal clothing.
that guy as well. Famously awful colonist. Dueling. Flintlock. Battlefield medicine, I guess. Yeah, first aid people 3 could be helpful. Naval tactics sounds good. Cavalry tactics as well. There. It's probably going to take several episodes to go through that list. But I'm not even going to touch anything else. Okay, I'm pretty much done with setting up cities inside of the old world. Oh, great. There's another heavy axeman. I'm probably going to set up one here in order to ensure at least land visibility and a reasonable amount of exploitation. Having multiple cities, because there are some wonders that require being in the Arctic or Antarctic or something. I'm probably going to ignore these spaces for a while. And I've just sent an adventurer down here in order to start mapping this massive, massive new world. It is utterly massive. I'll probably start setting up cities around here in order to, well, do the obvious. Really, take up more of the world so that I can prevent barbarians from spawning. And also, more cities means more signs. More production. I can build more wonders, etc. Of course, I'm probably going to need even more cities, because this is the number of cities, visible cities. I have 38. Sui, as far as I know, has 7. There might be one sitting here in the center that I don't know of, but no way to tell. Persia might have one further north, though this... Yeah, this is telling. This single little spot. I haven't looked in that area in ages. Although Persepolis is... Yeah, okay, so you've got copper. Congratulations. And Ahati, I know, has set up a second city at one point. There might be one further inland that hasn't been taken over by barbarians. Or it could have been taken over by barbarians as well. That's also a possibility. I am nearly finished with mapping out the... Shoot. I moved my mouse too far. The terrain. At least as far as I am able to within, you know, the limitations that the game provides me. I can only go so far. At least for now. The space map is up there, and it will be glorious. But yeah, this continent is vast. Look at it. I have said this before, and I'll say it again. I think it accounts for at least a third of the world's landmass, if not more. It is huge. So I'm probably going to end up with about 80-ish cities, I'd say. Depends on how I pack them. The eternal packing problem, that is... yeah, Hmm. I mean, say I take Persepolis, I probably plant a city here. Especially now that fresh water and being next to a river isn't nearly as important. Sure, I lose out on bridges, but I just want to be near a river. There's also this city. And probably a city over here, although that's just a palisade, but... I don't know, I didn't see very well into the tile. I didn't do that amazing. Okay, so that was a more thorough job of exploring eventually. Thanks to automation. Oh, there's Mount Sinai. Hmm. Yeah. I also, changed my civics around. I've got Confederacy now. Which doesn't give me as much a Great Person birth rate and one less free specialist, but I do get an extra trade route, more cash from merchants, and more production in every city. Sure, I get slightly less, well, and also gold. Sure, I get slightly less food, but the trade routes are also boosted to get me more food and production and commerce. Additionally, farms and stuff are now more powerful, as well as pastures. I get more food production and commerce. Technically, I can also build culture confederates, but I don't have North American. I don't, and European. Well, European special. It's very special because it's one that I can actually obtain, despite there being no European civ on the map. But I'm not going to explain that until it comes into play. And I can actually build what I'm referring to. And that won't be for a while. Either way, I've gone on long enough. I'll see you again next time. Until then, bye.